We are learning the Mammar, Shaftamayim, learning Mammar for Sukkos. Shaftamayim, the first Mammar, it's on page 3 in the PDF. So the Mammar says like this: Shaftamayim besasim in Yeshayahu. This is a famous Mammar of the Alter Rebbe. So I'm going to read I think this is the Yom Yom. Yeah, the Yom Yom of the 16th of Tishrai. So it says on the bottom of footnote number 1. At Tzemach Tzedek Sipur, the Tzemach Tzedek means the grandson of the Alter Rebbe tells. In the year Tav Kuf Samach Tes, in the year 1818, I think it is, or 1819 or 1809. Ishamanu mi'asaba, we heard from my grandfather, meaning the Alter Rebbe. Zua Pama Shishis as a Maimar Shaftamayim. We heard for the 6th time the Alter Rebbe said the Maimar Shaftamayim. So the Maimar Shaftamayim is a Maimar that was said 6 times by the Alter Rebbe. It says Shaftamayim Harishin Likutei Torah. That is the first of the 2 Shaftamayims that are in the Likutei Torah. There's 2. This is like what the Gemara tells about when we heard it for the 6th time. That from it says about Simchas Beis HaShoeva, from there he was able to draw Yonah Hanavi Kibel B'Simcha Beis HaShoeva Skili HaNevuah. Where did Yonah the prophet that we read about on Yom Kippur, did he get the ability for prophecy? It was from the joy that happened on the pouring of the water on Sukkos. So too the Chassidim gathered tremendous energy from this Maimar Shaftamayim that was said by the Alter Rebbe the 6th time. As it says, Anuka kibalnu at ein soif, we received until the infinity. Hasoif, what is the end? Hu shemashiach yavoy, the Mashiach should come, because the end and the beginning are connected. So that's the Yom Yom of 6 about the energy of this Maimar. Okay, so we're learning the Maimar. The Maimar says like this. It says the Shaftamayim v'sasa and remind Yeshua, so that we draw water with joy and from the wells of salvation with happiness. It says like this about jumping ahead to Shmini Atzeres. It says with regard to Shmini Atzeres, by Yom Shmini Atzeres, on the 8th day is Atzeres Tzia Lechem. It's going to be a day of gathering, a day of gathering in all the energy, so to say, of the holiday of Sukkot and the whole Tishrai. The entire year, there was different types of sacrifices on top of the altar. There was parim, there was cows, ve'elim, kvasim, usirim. There was sheeps, and there was rams, and there was goats. So there's different types of animals that were sacrificed on the mizbeach throughout the year. And then what happened was in the temple, the eish shalmayla yored al mizbeach kedmus ari roivetz, and a fire came down from heaven like a consuming lion in the image of a lion. The Teichel would eat the sacrifices, whatever it was, if it was a bull or a ram or a sheep, etc. And on Sukkos we added to that. They would pour the water, which is something unique only to Sukkos. Throughout the year, they poured wine, and on the Sukkos they would also pour the water. That's and how many days did they pour the water? 7 days. So the Mizbeach had, on top of the Mizbeach, there was like vessels that were like flasks kind of shaped on top, that there was a hole that went from there, the water or the wine spilled out and would go into the shisim, which was the drain system, which was at the yesod, at the foundation of the Mizbeach. So they would pour the water on Sukkot, and it's all 7 days. But on the 8th day, then there was a gathering, all these, the whole, whatever was happening on Sukkot. And throughout Tishrei, kind of came to a single gathering and a culmination on the holiday of Shmini Atzeres. Okay, so that's the opening to the Maimar. What does this all mean, and what does this all mean today? It says Kihine Achshav today. We're just starting. We're holding the 2nd paragraph, page 3. So we're talking about that. That throughout the year there was all types of sacrifices on the Mizbeach, and they would pour wine into the shisim system. And on Shmini Atzeres, aside for the regular wines, they also poured the 7 days. They poured the water. So it says like this: Today there's no longer a temple. And there's no longer an altar. People have to find the right chayfetz, the desirable things within the soul, means you have to find a way to match and meet the idea of the mizbeach of the void of the Beis Hamikdash in our own lives. Lahavin. So we have to understand. How could we find all the different various services in the temple within the heart of each individual? In every generation, here the Alter Rebbe says something that I only noticed this year. Every generation has to find its generation, its fire, that to find within its soul the fire that consumes the karbonis. That means we have the fire that says comes down from heaven. Hey Barbara, that comes down from heaven on Barbara, you asked. I'm going to try to see if I could quickly post. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to mess up the whole thing. So throughout the year, there's different kind of throughout the generations. He's saying, a person has to find within themselves what is the part, the fire that consumes their sacrifices. The different bulls and what's the level of the bulls and the rams and the sheep. What is the pouring of the water that we do on Sukkos? What is the concept in our avoda of the Shmini Atzeres? So a person has to find all these various avodas in themselves, and the Alter Rebbe says, every generation has its way of finding that fire, may be different than the previous generation. So the rabbis have taught us, the Gemara says in Brachas, that tefillas keneged timidim tiknum, the different prayers that we have are corresponding to the different various sacrifices that were in the temple. But the idea is the service of the heart, which is prayer. And what is the heart? The heart, he says, is keneged mizbeach, is the altar. And just like in the temple, there were two altars, meaning to say, pnimi v'chitzonius, there was the outer altar, which they sacrificed most of the sacrifices, and then the inner golden altar that was inside the holy, what's called the kodesh, next to the menorah, right outside the holy of holies, which they use for the ketores. So there's pnimis v'chitzonius. So too, kach yesh b'leiv beis bechinas. So too, the heart has two levels. What's called the chitzonius alev, the external of the heart, pnimis alev, and the internal of the heart, k'nai is known. And in the avoda shebelev zu tefillah, and in our avoda, which is tefillah davening, we have to, and which is the sacrifices that's done on the mizbeach, which corresponds to our heart, is the way we sacrifice what's considered the external of the heart, and how we penetrate the internal height of Shem and the internal of the heart. We're on top of page 3 on the left-hand side. So kshem shahayimai, we're talking about how do we find the avoda of the Beis Hamikdash in ourselves. So we have the mizbeach. The mizbeach is the heart. And there's the inner heart and there's the outer heart. Like there's the inner mizbeach, which we did the animals and the mincha and the oifais and the birds. And then we had the inner mizbeach of gold that was in the holy, that was for the ketoras. So kshem shahayim akivim mizbeach achitz and kol karbonis. So just like in the actual temple, the outer altar was where we sacrificed the karbonis, meaning the parim ve'elim kvasim, the bulls, the rams, and the sheep. So too, when it comes to davening, which we say the voda of the Beis Hamikdash is through davening. So today the voda of the Beis Hamikdash is through davening, and in the davening we have the mizbeches, we have the different altars. So the outer altar, which is like in the Beis Hamikdash where we sacrifice the animals, so too when a person davens, the idea of davening isn't just the davening of the mind, but it's a davening of the heart, avodah shebelev. And on that heart, which is like the mizbeach, we have to sacrifice the animals within ourselves, and the animals who correspond to the various types of animals. When a person davens, to awaken, the natural love a person has towards Hashem. That natural love is the external of the heart. It's not yet the internal of the heart. Because there's over there's where there's the fire and there's the animal, there's the energy, and he says that your external heart is lit up like a fire, B'hiskalas alev, in the revelation of the emotions, or the heart is feeling. And it's like we said in the Mizbeach that a fire in the Beis Hamikdash would come down in the image of a roaring lion to consume the animal. So too our external heart is an altar for the light and the fire that comes down from heaven, so to say, to reveal and to light up the inner animal, and to reveal the inner love that we have for Hashem. So you have to remember that there's the neshama, the nefesh elikis, the godly soul, is more of a refined character. It doesn't have the animalistic tendencies. The real energy is in the nefesh Bahamas, and the idea is to reveal b'chol levavcha, in all your heart, the love of Hashem to come from the nefesh Bahamas as well. And in order for that to happen, it has to be the transition. There has to be that the animal gets put on the mizbeach, and the fire from Hashem comes down. What does it mean the fire of Hashem comes down? That the animal within you is lit up with the love for Hashem. Like it says, that achrei Hashem yelechu ka'arya yishag. You have to follow Hashem, even though it's achrei, even though it's behind, because it's the nefesh Bahamas. But you have to follow Hashem ka'arya yishag, like a roaring lion. That energy of the animal within you has to be full of passion for Hashem. And what you're creating is the setting. The Eish comes down from above. But it's the combination of what your avoda is to put the animal on the mizbeach, and the fire that comes from above creates this tremendous energy and passion for Hashem. Which is, he explains, Shia ava hamislaheves umislahetes v'leva adam. This is the passionate, fiery love a person has in the heart, b'zochri es Hashem, through remembering Hashem, your Creator. Why? That when a person remembers Hashem and all that Hashem does, and he's going to explain that that's the whole process, and that's what we're talking about. What we talk about in the tefillah is to awaken these energies and this memory. She'ein roitze, the effect is, you don't want to be separate. Recognizing your Creator creates a desire to stay connected. And there should be nothing that gets in the way to separate you from Hashem. Like it says, Ki Hashem alekecha, Hashem your Lord, God your Lord, Eish Oichlahu is a consuming fire. Eish Oichla Eish is a fire that consumes fire. What does it mean? It means Eish Oichlahu is, you could translate it as two ways. One is that it's a fire that consumes, or it's a fire that gets consumed. So the Alter Rebbe says it's both. It's a fire that consumes a fire. What does that mean, a fire that consumes a fire? We have natural fire towards things in life, towards the material and physical things of life. Shesoyref umechala, that the fire of Hashem comes and burns and consumes kol ha'ishim, all the fires. Turning the page, asher lo l'Hashem ema, they're not godly. Means we have passions. That's the animal. The animal has passions. The fire comes down from heaven is to consume that fire and turn the passions into a passion for Hashem, not the passions that are not godly. Hanikr b'shem eish zara, it's a foreign fire. Again, it's like a avodah zara. Avodah zara doesn't necessarily mean it's an idol. It's foreign. Foreign means it's not godly related. It's a passion that has nothing to do to further your connection to Hashem. Hanikr b'shem eish zara, therefore it's called a foreign fire. And the idea of the Mizbeach is to create an environment that all the passions that you have in each person, like he says, there's different animals. There's the bull, there's the keves. Each person has their fire, their animal side, their passion that is according to their natural animal, and each person within themselves has the various of the animals. But the idea is that you should only have a fire for Hashem. Therefore, because that's what happens while one is davening, is that there's the consuming of the fire, the fire consumes our natural a yearning towards worldly things, to turn it, that we should only have a fire passion for Hashem. So we need the davening before we start any kind of avodah. Before we reach out to going to avodas Hashem of our day, we have to start with davening. Otherwise, our fire, our natural fire that we have for worldly things is a flame, and there's nothing to counter that. And therefore he says, L'chein Amar Razal, our rabbis have taught us, she'asur la'echel koydem hatfilah. A person in the Gemara Brachas says, and Spratan the Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, that a person should not eat before one prays. For instance, a person wants to have bread. You must be above the bread. And the bread has energy. And in order to be above the bread, that only comes through davening. The davening elevates the person to be able to use the energy from the bread in a proper way. What
What happened to page 4? That mine goes from 3 to 5.
And you have to open up your PDF. No pages should go from 3 to 5. It has to be page. If maybe you print it, did you print it? It goes from 3 to 4. After
No, I
3,
didn't print it. I didn't print it. I'm looking on the screen. When you went from, you said the next page. See, I was at the bottom of Shame on 3, and then the left column says Yeshayahu, but you
yeah,
didn't go there. And
I did, I
I'm
did,
no
I did,
4.
I did, I
My
did, I
next
did,
thing,
I
you
did.
went to the next column.
I went to the next column and now I'm holding page 4, which is the following column on the next page.
I have no 4, but anyway.
So he
Go
said
ahead.
there must be a 4. Yeah, I think you have to just re-download the PDF. There has to be a 4. It doesn't
That's okay. Just keep going. I don't have.
It says like this: L'chein Amar Azal, she'asur le'echel koydem atfila, a person should not eat before davening. Because when a person wants to eat a davar, kamei lechem gashmi, like food, bread, you must be above the bread to be able to control the energy of the bread. It's only when you're above the bread, and then you could control it and eat it and use the energy positively. Because this person, he or she, is before davening. You haven't refined your fire and consumed the extra, so to say, the fires that are going towards the wrong thing. And he says, what is the main central fire that a person wakes up with that needs to be dealt with before it's possible to daven? The Alter Rebbe says is the davening is the daigas aparnasa, is the maim rabim, is the pressures of life, the pressures of finances, the pressures of paying your bills, the pressures of getting through the day financially. Because of that, the daigas, the anxieties of it, ties you down to the world. And that pulls you into other worldly things. That becomes your center point, that becomes your weight. And with that weight comes other vulnerabilities. And and you are at best at the same level as the bread. You and the bread. Why? Because you're focused on the bread, right? The bread controls you. You don't control the bread. How do you get bread? If you're financially secure, if you have the anxieties of a parnasa translates in either levushim, in garments, or bayis, a house, or oichel, a food. So at that moment, you're at best equal with the food because that's your whole focus: how to get the food, as opposed to how to use the food as a way of elevation. So therefore, at best, you're at the same level as the bread. And therefore, you shouldn't eat because you have to first refine your fire, focus your fire. The fire is about Hashem. Don't have your passions and your concerns and your focus and your anxieties all focused on daigas haparnas and other gashmistic things. And only then you could use the energy of the bread in a positive way. That's the idea of davening. That's the first thing in the morning we do is daven. Lisraif, he says, daigas haparnas. First thing, you got to burn out your anxieties of finances, of financial, of getting by the day, and whatever includes that. Even a person who's Baruch Hashem says, well, I wake up in the morning and I'm fine. I check my ATM quickly, my bank account, everything's good, and I'm jolly. Well, I can have a piece of bread. There's other things that are pressing, that you have passions for. If it's not going to be this, it's going to be something else. And here he says, what is one of the things that they sacrificed? The carbon mincha. And what was the mincha? The different grains, the flours, the wheats that were part of the menachas. That means they're sacrificing the representation of parnasa, of lechem, of bread. But he's saying, we're not sacrificing the idea of having a parnasa livelihood. The idea of why we wake up, right? Everyone wakes up in the morning, goes to work 5, 7, 6 days a day, a week. So it's not that parnasa itself that you're burning, because that parnasa says, a person needs parnasa to live. The Torah tells us, at the efforts of your hands, you will eat. Means you need to work and you'll eat. Ashrecha, and praiseworthy. But that's the technicality of work. The investment of your mind, but it's not your worries. It's how to get it done. It's what's called external. It's the chitzonius. Avahadaiga, the anxiety of it, the emotional attachment to it. The person is pained and concerned and full of anxiety about it. That passion has to go. That comes from the fire of the animal soul. And that's a foreign fire. That's not where your fire should be. That's not where your energy should be. And that has to be consumed. The only way to get rid of that fire is not that fire doesn't get put out by water. We're going to talk about the water in a second. That fire has to be transferred to with the fire, with the fire that comes down from Hashem, to re-guide that passion towards Hashem and re-guide what focus and drives you. Again, it's not about a question of if I have bread to eat. It's a question of your focus. Why do you work? What motivates you? Is it the benefits of that it's going to buy you in the physical world, or is this a way to enhance your service of Hashem? The fire is there. The parnasa is not a problem. It's the passion that you have towards the parnasa. What the parnasa is, why what drives you? Is it what's behind the success that you're seeking? Is it so you could serve Hashem better? So whatever that is, whether it's sending your children to Jewish education or davening better or having guests or giving tzedakah, all the things that you're supposed to do in a positive way, versus just so you should have for yourself or to just climb the social ladder. Now he continues. Vihine. Amr Zal of rabbis have taught us that. So a person says, so far we're learning that there's a fire that comes down from heaven. So to say, like a roaring lion that transfers the energy of the fire should be a fire for Hashem. But that's not enough. Rabbis have taught us that even though though the fire came down from heaven, that doesn't have anything to do with your efforts. You also have to bring fire. Means it's not enough to just wait for Hashem to it's not even enough to go to the Mizbeach and to take your animal and put it on there and daven and wait for Hashem to come with the fire and to consume your fire. That it should be only towards Hashem. There has to be the effort even to transfer your fire for worldly things to godly things. There has to be the initial effort on your side, which is the mitzvah lahavi min hadyet. There's the person has to be hadyet's representing in this case the kohen. The common person, meaning the human being, has to also bring their fire, even though it's nothing on the level of the fire that Hashem brings, but bring a little bit of your own. That is a preparation for the fire that comes down from heaven. He says, what does this all mean in our service to Hashem? What does this mean in our service to Hashem? It says, so we talk about Hashem, it says, there's the idea of Zaireya tzedakah, we plant good deeds, charities, and from there grows salvations. Plural. So there's plural tzedakahs and plural yeshuais, salvations. In order to understand what is the idea of the avodas Hashem, which he's going to say is the idea, the concept of Zaireya tzedakahs matzmiach yeshuas. Zaireya tzedakahs is like the idea of planting a seed, right? You put one seed, comes a large. Where there's a lot of wheat comes from one seed. So that's the Zaireya tzedakahs, is the seed. And from there comes all kind of yeshuas, all kind of salvations for the person. So to understand this, he said like this. The verse in Shir Hashirim 2 says that the Smailei Tachas Reishi, this is a very, very common quoted verse in Chassidus, that there's the concept of Smailei Tachas Reishi, the left hand supports my head, the Yamini Tachapkeni, and the right hand hugs me. So he says, what does this mean? The left hand supports my head and the right hand hugs me. What does it mean that the right hand hugs me? That the right hand hugging me is God's kindness. The right hand represents kindness and God's bringing us close, like someone who hugs someone. And the hugging is the idea of taking all the sparks, all the Jewish souls, to become one with Hashem. Like it says, Am Kroive, God's close people, close nation. To your mamish hugging, like a hug from Hashem. Like a person who hugs their friend. It's such a strong, like a beer hug, that the person can't leave. So too comes to us from Hashem. He gives us this big hug, that He gives us such a love. We never want to leave Him. So, but how do we get that hug from Hashem? It has to be, you have to bring a little aish from yourself. You have to give a little fire. And he explains, what does it mean to give fire? What does it mean to bring your own fire? In order to be worthy of this great love, this hug from Hashem, there has to be the concept of the left hand supports my head. What does it mean, the left hand? We know the right hand is hugging and encouraging, and the left hand is pushing away. Right? We know that the Gemara tells us a person always has to have the balance of the left hand to be disciplined and the right hand hugging. Too much hugging isn't good, and too much gevura isn't good, right? It says that the Gemara learns from the stories of Gehazi and Oisei Talmud that when they pushed them away with two hands, they never came back. The idea is to have a balance of support and discipline. So he says, the left hand pushes. Shapiro, she explains, it's the idea of humbling a person. And the humbling is not that Hashem pushes you. The humbling is that is the aish, that is the little fire that you bring, is the self-humbling process. Where he explains, when a person recognizes and pays attention and is aware, and gets deep in their mind, how each person is really, because of what our choices and the things that we've done, we're rachik Hashem, we're distant from God. In a very distant way. And a person, all the things that the avodah that person comes from the left side, it comes from the mariras, from the bitter side, the side the person recognizes, how far we are from Hashem. We wake up in the morning, we don't always wake up in the morning saying, wow, I was so perfect yesterday. We have a lot of things that we have regrets. We're not talking about that God's left hand pushes the person away, God forbid. God would never push someone away. A person realizes that you've distanced yourself from God. And this idea, this feeling that you feel far from God, kind of goes under your head. What does it mean, under my head? To go really deep in your mind to recognize what it means to be distant from Hashem. So you're really pushing yourself aside. You're pushing yourself aside with realizing how far you are. First, I thought I was a great person. But the more you go tachas l'reishi, the more you think about it and analyze your motives and your drive, and you realize that it's not about, how much was it about God and how much was it about you? Each person according to their level, obviously. And that's all what we talk about in Yom Kippur when we say we ask for forgiveness and we say the al chait shemizvadim al nafsham v'ayimrim, we say sarnu tiyavnu v'kibetzei. We describe all the different things that we've done to distance ourselves from Hashem. What are we doing? We say al chait over and over again. We're putting, it's a way of humbling ourselves before Hashem. And we say, we realize how far we really are from God. And that creates the fire within us. When a person thinks highly of themselves and congratulates themselves for their service, as opposed to recognizing their shortcomings, so then they're satisfied. When a person realizes their distance and they're to blame for the distance, so it creates a thirst. You don't want to be far. So that creates a thirst for Hashem. And only when a person goes through that experience of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, through the idea of smiley tachlis l'reishi, the experience of the left, of recognizing your distance, and that creates a thirst, then you're worthy of having the blessing of Sukkos, which is the right hand hugging you. So the fire that comes down from heaven is the fire that comes down that brings you the love and the passion, but you have to bring something, and what you're bringing is a different type of fire. It's not the fire saying, look, God, how much I love you. It's look at how much I love you because I feel so far from you, and I've created this distance. And that's, he says, that's what it means to plant charities. What does that mean? The Jewish people themselves are called it tzedakah. Hashem and pasuk, like it says, with tzedakah I establish myself. V'gam Klal Yisrael matam lehem mitzvah tzedakah. Not only that, the Jewish people are full of doing charity, the mitzvah of it. And in the 10 days of tshuva, that's what we're planting. We're planting with our avoda, the things, the givings and the commitments that we're doing. And just like a seed, that gets planted in the earth. And it's just like a seed. You can't just put a seed into any earth. The earth needs to be prepared. And what does it mean to prepare the earth for the seed? That it should be able to grow is you have to plow, is the chrisha. Hativ. Well, mash'enkin offer kasher, if the earth is going to be hard, if you don't plow your heart and go through the 10 days of tshuva to do a reckoning on yourself and in your avoda, so then you're distant. It's like trying to put a seed in unplowed earth. Nothing is going to come from that. The seed's going to just rot, and that's it. In order for there to be growth, there has to be the avoda of charisha. And charisha is the avoda, the 10 days of tshuva, of going through the process of the meriris, of the smile, daichav, the recognition of the alchet. So he says, "Mash'enkin offer kasher if the earth is hard, la yizr v'yitzbach klal, won't grow anything from it. Kach kol mitzvah, so to a mitzvah. Tzedakah v'chesed Yisrael oisin u'mizgal and kol yimei tzashana, the tzedakah that we do throughout the year. And la yizr v'yitzmach b'klal, the tzedakah alone is not enough. If you're just going to do tzedakah charity, that's like a seed. Fine, that's seeds. You're doing something, but it's like putting a seed in unplowed earth. It's not going to grow to anything. So not, you have to go through the process of tshuva. Break your heart, plow through your heart. Through humbling yourself, like earth, that's been plowed, soften the earth. Soften yourself a bit. Don't be so hard about your confidence. It's not a hard of akshanis, of stubbornness. It's a stubbornness. It's a hardness of not wanting to go through the process of humbling yourself. And therefore, the mitzvahs alone, the mitzvahs which we say are zereya tzedakah, is which you're planting a seed. The seed has a condition. Where have you planted the seed? What have you done with yourself? A person thinks, well, it's all about just writing the check. It's all about just doing the avoda. It's all about the action, right? It's all about the maisa ikr. But that's true. Maisa is the ikr, but where are you putting the maisa? Are you putting it in an earth that won't yield anything? And you have to go through avodas atzma. You have to go through your own avodah. That's avodah, the process of breaking the earth, of charisha, of plowing. Continues, top page 5. He says, so to be seen within the character of the people who give tzedakah. A proper giving tzedakah is not to say is not to be in an ego space where you're feeling great about yourself and I'm giving that person. That's not proper tzedakah. It says, you first have to be like Avram. Avram, who's the biggest Baal Chesed as our example, is Avram. And what does Avram say? Anochi offer v'efer. He humbled himself. So first you have to make yourself like earth. If you're going to view yourself as something worthwhile, look, thank you. God has to come literally with his whole entourage and thank me for being such a Baal Chesed. If you think you're something special, then it's all in an investment. An investment, you can only give what's worthwhile to you. Every time you give, you're going to see what's my return on the investment. So you can only give a maestros. What's maestros? It's extras. Why is it called extra? Because it's only something you're ready to invest in. Because if you don't recognize or see the return that you're going to get on it, you're not going to do it. Because it's all the way to enhance yourself. But you're not ready to give from your hard effort. Mammar is something that you depend on, which is not maestros. Maestros is extra. So that's our chalishma for a person to be on that madrega, to be able to give even extras, even essentials. You have to be able to break your passions that comes from ego. Don't look that you're greater than the person that you're giving, but at least at the best case, you should be equal to that person. Like the Gemara says, what makes you think your blood is more red than the next person's? Why should the person that you should have everything you want, eat and drink, but the Rasha and call him to the poor person, that person has nothing. Why is it any different? What makes you think that you're different? Why should that person have less? We all have one Father, God. God gives everything. Why? So what do you think you have better blood than that person? When a person goes through that humbling process, so then the tzedakah has a place to rest. It has an earth. It has a that's called like Avram. Avram Avinu says, I'm nothing. And then you have yourself a earth that could grow something from that. So that's the process that happens. It be on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is the process of plowing through yourself. And what happens in the 4 days that we're sitting right now? Right, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, that's where things start to grow, because after Yom Kippur we've completed the plowing process. And the first day of Sukkot, Nigdal v'nitzmach b'chinas Avram chesed alien. Then grows the true chesed, the chesed of Avram. Then we get the real hug from Hashem. We're worthy of that hug. And like I said before, what was Avram? He said, an earth that could grow something from that. So that's the idea of Zerei Tzedakah, is that you plant a tzedakah in a proper earth. And from there is Matzmiach Yeshua. So all of a sudden you see salvations are going to start growing in a way that you've never imagined. Just like one seed could grow a tremendous amount of wheat, so too when you put the tzedakah in the right way, all of a sudden, Matzmiach Yeshuas, it's great salvations. That you see a salvation that comes from the right side, which is chesed. Like it says, that through the right hand you could return. Because the right and the kindness and the right, which is the same idea. Because through the right hand and chesed in the right way, you're taking things that were in the wrong place, and you're hugging it back, you're bringing it back to holiness. Let's skip the parentheses. We're going to go to top of page 6. The parentheses, he goes in to explain a little more depth of the idea of the right hand, which is the idea of the bringing in the chesed, that the chesed has to come in a right hugging way of avoda, of the idea of humbling. But let's see a little bit further. If we want to finish the Mammar, we're going to skip to page 6. If we finish the Mammar, we can go back a little bit. So he says like this. We said before that it's not enough that we make ourselves a mizbeach to Hashem, but we also have to bring something. We have to bring a fire. And what's the fire that we bring? Is the humbling process, that is the idea of Zerei Tzedakah Matzmiach Yeshuos. We create an environment, a space where the seed has a place to grow, and from there Taka grows salvation, and from there we're worthy to the fire to come down from heaven. But we have to bring ourselves something. Pirsh Hadyot. What does it mean, hadyot? Hadyot means, literally, it means something simple or plain. We take the plain things in our life, seemingly ungodly things, when a person understands. And a person is in a kind of a way in a calculated way. The person realizes all the simple things, and all the speech, action, and thought that you have throughout your days and your life that have not been godly. You realize there's a lot of hedyot, there's a lot of simple, doesn't have to be bad things, but simple non-godly things that you experience throughout your life. And you realize how because of that creates a distance. That creates the feeling of the left side that pushes you down, like we said before, which is the experience of meriris, of bitterness. And therefore it creates a thirst and a passion for Hashem. And it makes a person, it says that it's not just that you feel pushed away, but also you're a bit disgusted with yourself when you realize how much effort and focus you put on worldly things. And then you become bitter and you call out to Hashem in your narrow space of feeling far. Like it says, Sark Libam, I call out to God, the Merirs Azais, And this bitterness, again, that creates the setting to be able to be for the passion, like the fire that comes down from heaven. And what is that? He says an interesting thing. What is the Ava Rabba, the fire that comes down? The fire that comes down is that the godly soul has a natural love for Hashem in a proper way. It's the animal side of the person that's not. And the problem is we're when we say neshama shnasati b'tahiri, who are we? We're really the animal. We have within us the nefesh elikis, but the feelings that guide us and run us and that we're running on is the animal feelings. And therefore that creates a feeling that we feel distant. And because we're feeling distant, so when we have that bitterness, we don't want the distance. That the animal starts to thirst for Hashem. And when the animal starts to thirst for Hashem, then the fire comes down. What is the fire comes down? It's not just that an outside fire comes down. The real fire that you already have from your nefesh elikis, from your godly soul, now unites with the fire of your nefesh bahamis. And you become a person of fire. Eish eichla eish means a fire that consumes fire. It's not just that it throws out the first fire. It transforms the old fire, the fire of the animal, and together it becomes a fire for Hashem. Means it's not just that the nefesh elikis takes over the nefesh bahamis. That's the godly soul takes over the animal soul. That's not a real end to avoda, to service. What we want to achieve over here is that the animal soul together with the godly soul become a single fire. Eish eichla eish means becomes a single fire. That the fires that you had that were foreign from the animal become a passion for Hashem, and then you have this tremendous fire, both the energy of the nefesh bahamis of the animal soul with the natural passion with the godly soul to create a single energy going towards Hashem. That's really the avoda of a person. The avoda of a person is to turn the energy of the animal, not to, like the Baal Shem Tov says, it's not about breaking the animal. You have to transform the animal, and that's the idea of hishapcha. In some ways, we start with restraining it, but even the restraining of it is moving by force, not yet willingly, by force, the energy of the animal towards Hashem. So he says, "V'hine." So this is what we described until this point, is the avoda of the Beis Hamikdash that's in our personal life, the avoda of davening, and he calls that that's all about the fire. And he says, but that's fire. There's another greater level than the mixings and the transformings of the fires. That's the level of water. And that happens on Sukkos. I mean, Sukkos, when we pour the water. That we pour the waters on Sukkos. Why? Like it says, fire creates a thirst. Then how do you satisfy that thirst? Is through the water. If you're thirsty, go to the water. And there's different levels of water that satisfy a thirst. Like it says, you revealed yourself to know. That God is that God is Elokim in heaven and earth. There's nothing else but God. That means that God gave us in some point the visual, mamish, clear vision to know that everything we see Elokim is God. That creates not a bittul of the yesh, which is the fire that we change who we are, but we lose who we are. Means that what we said until now is the passion of fire is that the fire gets changed. So that's called what's known in Chassidus as bittul hayesh. Means you're just changing the separation. But to lose yourself, that comes from that's the avodah of water. And he explains. That's called water. What does water do? It puts out and cools the fire. When a person reaches a level of absolute nullification to God, it's not about how now I become a more passionate person to God. It's not about me anymore. It's about I totally lose myself to God. He says it cools not just the passion of the nefesh bahamis, but even the passion that the godly soul has. It's because it's no longer about you. It's about I don't want to exist at all. Like the Alter Rebbe says, I don't give me any experiences. I want just God. He gives an example. When a father has a son has a love to a father, When the son is distant from the father and wants to get close. Then there's this feeling the son has towards his father. The son is calling out, Father, Father. When the son is standing in front of the father. Yes, there's love, but it's deep. It's inside. It's rotzef. It's filled with that love. You're not screaming, Father, Father. You're there. That's called water. It centralizes and brings it home, so to say, that love inside, internally, and what is it's in a way of bittul b'mtzias. It's not about calling out from a distance. You're so close, you're there that you feel like you don't even exist. It gets hidden in the heart, the fire, and that's why we go. That's the whole process of davening. We build up the fire. We fan the fire. We talk about the animal. We talk about the angels. We talk about everything that's going on in the world. Then we go into the brichas Shema. Then we go to Shema, which is mamish, an experience and an expression of our passion. And where do we go from there? To all of a sudden become silent. We stand Shemona Esrei. He says that's the idea. From there we go into quiet standing Damidah, quietly. When a person starts davening, at the beginnings of davening, the singing, the praises, that's when you're starting to fan the fire, the love. You start burning your other passions. They not have passions for the world, like we said before. All the Eishzar, all the foreign fires. As you mentioned before, but you're still distant. Because of your distance, you're trying to transform the fire that, because of the distance, went towards other things to go towards Hashem. But when you reach the level of davening, when he says tefillah, he means over here the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah, now you're standing right in front of the king. Bless, right here in front of me, present. To bring down to bring the oneness of God into the world. Totally to nullify yourself to Hashem. That's the idea when we say moedim in davening. To nullify yourself. You say, I acknowledge God. That's why we bow during the Shemona Esrei, during the Amidah. We don't get excited. We're quiet when daven Amidah. But because in order to be at that level of Shemona Esrei of the Amidah throughout the day, that's not possible, because as soon as we finish davening, we go back to starting the whole fire again. How does a person make sure not to leave? You have to have a strategy to make sure that you could at least have a leftover of that kind of commitment to Hashem. We see clearly, once a person davens, completes the davening, you're back to where you were in the beginning. The only way to cement the experience of davening is from after davening we start learning. Because the learning is about worldly things. When you go and you open up halachas, laws, that says Hilchas Torah. When you start learning the halachas of Torah after davening, you have a shiur. Then it takes the nullification you had for Hashem and brings it into your actual reality throughout the day. You learn about the holidays, about the different laws of planting. And that is the real unification, because when you're standing Shemona Esrei, you lose yourself and you go out of your space of your reality. But then when you come back into reality, because it's such a contradiction, then you're going to be back as if nothing happened, because all of a sudden the world takes over again. So how do you bridge what you from where you're going, from where you're coming from the Shemona Esrei, to where you're going, which is out in the world? Is you start with learning halachas and Torah. The Torah tells you how you're supposed to live that life in the world. A person has to nullify themselves and make a place. You have to nullify all your wants for Hashem. And that's the power of Shemona Esrei, because of that learning. Learning is as if you're davening Shemona Esrei, because it takes the Torah decides how you're supposed to live your life. When a person learns Torah after davening, that cements that when you go out to the world, you don't fall from what you've reached, that you achieved in your davening. And that's what he says in the time of holidays. That's the level of Shmini Atzeres. Tielachem, to gather in. To gather in all the waters, all the experiences, all the bittul that you went through in Sukkot. In order to make sure it doesn't spill out. Shmini Atzeres is time to gather in all the energy of the whole Tishrai. Otherwise, a person could go back as if he or she never davened. Behind the top of page 7, what's the power of Shmini Atzeres? Because he says 8 is the idea of bina, of understanding, which is in the heart. You really have to cement in this nullification to the depth of your heart, because we know that pleasure is in understanding, because chachma is just the idea. But in order to really have pleasure in something, you have to properly understand it. The world of pleasure. Because mayim is chachma. But if you just have the chachma, if it doesn't have a broader understanding, which is done through Shmini Atzeres, through learning and through expanding it, so then it just leaves. But if you have a place for it to settle, a place for you have a place of understanding, so then you grasp the concept, and therefore it's able to stay with you. That's the highest level of love, like a son who's standing in front of the father. But how do you gather that and capture that moment? Is you have to have Shmini Atzeres, which is the idea of bina, which is the idea of understanding. So it has like it says nekuda beichala, that there's a dot, which is chachma, but it has to have a heichel, it has to have a chamber, it has to have a space. Just like the dot controls the space, so too the space is a space for the dot. It goes both ways. Now he goes, V'zeu, and this is what it means. That we draw water on sukkahs from the wells of salvation. The idea is that the water has to be like a well, like a spring. Like it says, when you leave Hashem, if you're leaving God, you're leaving the source of the live water. And it's like the source of the water that's under the earth. A person only knows a little bit of the water that comes out, but the source of the water is deep, deep, that no one could see. And in order to be able to talk, to really be koilet through Shmini Atzeres, you really have to harness that water and put it into deep space, that although a little bit trickles out constantly, but it has a very, very solid source. And that's the idea with Shafta Mayim, you're drawing the water, and in mine say, sure, you have to create mayonis, you have to create springs. A person in the Ravoda has to dig deep into this to the spring. You have to go really deep into the dirt, meaning to humble yourself and stay humbled, and through humbling yourself, you'll stay focused. Not just to humble yourself, but also to put yourself deep into the studying of Torah and the laws, which is the beginning of everything. That comes from the well, from the source of the water. And it goes all the way from the top down to under the earth. And over there, when you unearth the laws of Torah, what is the law? What does the Torah tell us about this situation? What does the Torah tell us about that situation? So you're unearthing the water that's in the world. It means you're unearthing the Torah's connection to the happenings of your life. When a person learns the halachas, and the halachas tells a person how you're supposed to behave in different ways, you're connecting the water, the source of the water, you're unearthing it, and you're showing how the Torah is really the source of life, what's going of your reality, and therefore it could stay forever. Because as long as you go out to the world and it's disconnected to godliness, then there's no connection to the water, so to say, to the Mayim Chaim, the live water, to your life. But the Torah goes dafka specifically into the details of your life. How do you dress, and how do you eat, and how do you do business, and how do you build a house, and all the laws that you suppose that you look into Shulchan Aruch. That's the idea of the unearthing of the water that's there, that's connected, but you have to connect to it. So he says, which is nimshach mimakom, that the Torah comes down from the high source of water, and it goes all the way down under the earth. Running gashmin to worldly things, how you're supposed to plant, and how the holidays are. And that becomes waters of salvation, they become springs of salvation, because the salvation is that a person remains. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is, how to create consistency in our avoda, that we've reached these high levels in Shemona Esrei, but how do we implement it? That should be a continuance. That's something that becomes of how we live and how we behave. That's my honest Yeshayahu. That's the salvation. The salvation is to unearth the waters and show that there's really a connection to everything, and everything's connected to Torah. Without mayane trey, that's why it says two, plural, two types of springs. Number one is you have to be humble. As long as you're egotistic about yourself, there's no way for you to get in touch with the springs, because you're the waters of Torah and earth is humble. Like it says, be like dirt to everyone. And the other thing is that Torah, that the Torah encloses itself in worldly things. But what you have to do is, the worldly things you see. You're facing worldly things constantly. Find the water underneath that. Find the Torah, connect the Torah to that. They recognize the connection to Torah that's in that. And then you have live waters. Only halachically, waters that are in the earth, that's considered live water that could purify someone. But the waters that are on top of the earth, that doesn't have the power of Mayim Chaim. When we really need to purify someone, like the Mayim Chaim is used for the most severe impurities. The most severe impurities are only from water that's called Mayim Chaim, and that's waters that go under the earth. That's waters that connect to your bittul. That waters that connect to that you connect the world, the Torah, to your reality. As long as there's a disconnect, it's that there's earth and there's water on top of the earth. So then there's the Torah is like above the world, right? As long as Torah is above the world, so then you're not going to have springs of salvation. You want to have real springs of salvation, of consistency in your avodas Hashem. You don't have this up and down. And when you daven Shemona Esrei, you're very holy and very aware. But when you go out in the world, you're separate. How do you have this consistency? Is from the waters that are under the ground, and that's the ground and the waters become one. And that's from humility. That's from studying Torah. And he says, and then he goes on to other explanations about that, and we'll stop over here. I want to wish everyone Chag Kosher v'Sameach and a happy Sukkos b'Simcha. Again, the pasuk says, "V'shaftemayim b'Sasayin," that we draw the waters with joy. This avodah has to be done with joy, even if it starts with smile, with left, with meriras, with bitterness. The idea is that we unite our fires, and we bring our humility, and we bring our mayim and connect to the mayim. And shall be in a way that Sukkot all comes together in the way of Shmini Atzeres. It's Shem this year Shmini Atzeres. We should see it mamish begoli, only in a way of positive. V'toiv v'nir v'nigla. I want to wish everyone good Yom Tov, Chag Sameach. Take care. Thank you for joining.
Rabbi.
Sure.
Rabbi.
Yes, Barbara.
Yeah, this is Barbara. Quick question. I don't think I had the right PDF. I was able to follow along with you, but what I have has Elul the Torah for Teshuvah, and didn't have anything that we were talking about.
The thing is that where did you get the PDF from? From the email? From the WhatsApp?
It came from an email.
From here?
That's from an email, and that's how I do.
I think you have to. It could be when you open the PDF, you open up the wrong one, because if you push the actual PDF in the email, it will open up to the right one, and then you have pages 1 to 30. If you clicked on the link, the link will open up various different choices. Maybe you hit the wrong one, the wrong link.
Okay, I probably went to. I'm sorry. Okay, all right.